All right, part two, we'll try again. He's unable to join, so we'll see if we can start this up again and see if he can actually join us. But I will be joined, hopefully, fingers crossed, by George today. He goes by the bodybuilding nurse on murse on Instagram. We're going to be talking about essentially kind of the idea of growing through the ranks and what it takes when it comes to being a bigger male in the bigger bodybuilding divisions. We'll talk about training, food, drugs, and also the toll it takes physically and mentally to hold a higher body weight and kind of what it takes to essentially be successful in this division. So hopefully this works again as seemingly as possible, but it wouldn't be Instagram without a little bit of trouble troil and all that fun stuff. Yo!
What's up?
What's up? How's your fucking hamstring, dude?
My back actually. So after weeks of PT, we came to the conclusion it's more than likely a herniated disc. But we are on the rise finally.
Good.
Back to training 100%. Just staying away from anything axial loaded. This way, just the spine has time to heal, and the herniation hopefully just absorbs itself, and I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, training up to 100% again. With that only restriction.
Dude, well, for that, we can be fucking grateful because obviously, as we'll get into it, it's like being a bigger male, like that has its own stress on the body. But then, since you have to take your training to a higher level, like that's just like injury rate is 100%, regardless of what sport you're in. But especially being like a bigger dude, like it's sometimes just the cost of doing business.
I feel like it's the territory, absolutely. Like the more and more you can be as safe as you want, but at the end of the day, like it's going to happen to you. It's just a matter of how you take it and how you recover and taking the proper steps to recover from it.
Agreed, agreed. Well, I would love to kind of know, kind of like learn about your origin story. Like, I'm big into superheroes and stuff like that. So, kind of give us your origin story, give us your background, and then from there we can kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of our topic.
Sure, sure. So I've been competing now for about 5-ish years now. I actually gained the interest from my mom. So shout out to my mom. So my mom actually competed back in like, what was it? I think like 2016, 2015 in her first show. And I went to the show. I was like, huh, this seems like really, really cool. And then, I went to nursing school, was in nursing school. And then for some crazy ass reason, I said, wow, nursing school is really easy and boring. I need something challenging. And I decided to embark in my first endeavor in bodybuilding journey in 2019, 2020. My advisor at school actually was a bodybuilder. So I approached him. I'm like,
Dude,
hey,
what's in your guys' water?
it's New Jersey, man. Don't you know over here, like it's just like saturated up in like the Jersey area. So approached him. I'm like, hey, how do I go about this? He put me in contact with his coach, and now that went through a couple of shows with him, and fast forward 5-ish, six, almost 6 years, and here we are. Yeah, loving life.
No kidding. So, question: what did your mom compete in?
So she competed in bikini. She will be. I am actually once we get my wife and I, we're going away in a few weeks to Jamaica to get married, and they like actually have the ceremony and everything. So after we get back from there, she is going to go on her last and final prep.
Well, congratulations, one, for getting married, two, going to Jamaica, and then three, for having your mom compete in her final prep. That's
Yes.
awesome.
So she's very excited, and hopefully everything goes well. Her body responds the way that we hope. She's been battling an injury herself, actually, to her hamstring, so that's been a hassle for her. But yeah, it seems to run in the family here.
Absolutely. So, one final question about your mom, and then we'll actually dive into you. But as her son, how did it feel to see your mom on stage? And like, how was it kind of like seeing her go through your bodybuilding journey, and how has that helped you in your own bodybuilding
It
journey?
was weird at first. I'm not gonna lie, like it was weird. Like everybody's like looking at your mom, like basically butt ass naked, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And like not knowing much about the sport at the time, you didn't have the appreciation I do now for it. Obviously, it's come a long way since like 2016, 2015. The old school bikini poses and all that extra shit. So obviously, there's like a lot of difference between now and then. But at first, it was very, very different approach. But in hindsight, I appreciate every part of it because that's helped not only my mom and I get closer, but just having that collaborative approach to helping her get further in her journey, because she's always been about health ever since, the last 20, 30 years at least. So it's always nice to be able to, I actually laugh because she always tells me that I have now surpassed her in terms of knowledge, in terms of training, like all of that. I'm like, well, it's just, it's just how it goes.
I love that. I think that's great. So, what were you able to glean from her prep and how she bodybuilt, and how are you able to kind of apply that into your own journey?
So her previous coach, like 10 years ago or whatever it was, had that old school philosophy, like gun to the head mentality of just like, hey, you're going to eat like 500 calories and suffer. So,
Sounds about right.
yeah, you know how that goes. It was before like we got into like all the sciencey shit of bodybuilding. So, seeing what she went through kind of like really set the precedence. Like on my very first prep, I'm like, oh, like this is the expectation. Like you're gonna fucking suffer. Like that's it. So I feel like that was like the one thing that just like helped me like from the get go, just be like, yep, this is gonna suck no matter how you approach it, but I'm gonna get through it. And we're gonna have fun doing it.
I love that. I think that's great. Now, kind of getting into your own bodybuilding journey, like what were your goals and expectations going into the sport? And then from there, we can kind of talk about like your evolution as to like how you have managed to make progress and push your body into, essentially surpassing what your body wants to put on naturally in terms of just like muscle development.
Yeah. So it really my initial journey into bodybuilding was actually not even intended for a long-term journey. It was actually I went into it saying, you know what, I want to try this out. Like that's all it was. I want to stay natural, to try this out. Met my wife during bodybuilding, thankfully, and the rest is history. So since then, I initially said I never want to be that big. That's how I came into the sport. Like it was like never want to be that big. And then after the first show, you're like, fuck, I was really small. And now it's like,
fuck,
okay,
I want to be big.
now I was like, all right, fuck. Like, then you slowly start to develop more and more, and then like it's just never enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no matter how much we do this sport, it's just never enough. And since then it's been ups and downs, like anything else. And I'm sure you followed along. You've been following me for a long time now. I'm sure you saw not last year, the previous year, I competed at North Americans, and that was like my lightest weight actually, like since my first year of bodybuilding almost. I think I weighed in at 165, and I haven't even touched that weight since my first prep. And moving forward, talking with my new coach now, we're gonna go ahead and push up to that bigger category, which is what obviously this whole purpose of this topic is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, question for you. So, when you first started, you said you didn't want to get that big and you wanted to stay natural. How and why has your perspective changed on wanting to be bigger and then wanting to go to the enhanced route? Like, what kind of clicked in your brain where you're like, oh no, I actually do want to do this?
So it really just came to the actual feeling. Like I know people glamorize the stage a lot, and that's like the reality of it. Like we all do it, and social media is guilty for it. But that's really what kind of did it for me. Is like when I stepped on stage, I loved every second of it. I love the cumulative work that it took to get all the way to that stage and present the package that you actually did. And to me, it was just an amazing process, from the coaching aspect. That's why I enjoy coaching so much. And from the athlete perspective, like it was just all around very fruitful. And that's kind of what sparked that. Where it kind of clicked in terms of it's time to, go the enhanced route is very simple. You just look at the other guys. You realize that if you are in the NPC, 90% of the people you're going against are not natural. So the only way you can actually be competitive in this sport, for men at least, is be in that realm.
Good. I like that. I like that you learn to fall in love with the process. And once you've kind of like really the process, like kind of grabbed hold of your heart and you were checking off your boxes and doing quote unquote the right things, then you were like, hey, you know what? Like, if I want to do this and I want to be competitive and win, enhancements is just what I want to do if I choose to compete in the NPC, which clearly you have been.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only thing I've ever competed in. So like, it's not like this is a surprise. So
Right.
it was from the very first start, like that was the goal. It wasn't even a consideration for any of those other federations. And it's nothing against them. It's just the fact that I wanted to compete with the best. And I feel like that's where the best go.
Yeah. I mean, same, nothing wrong with that. So let's actually go ahead and transition between what you're doing with your new coach in terms of like you're no longer wanting to weigh 160 like on stage. You were wanting to be with the big dogs. So how has your programming shifted in terms of nutrition, training, and then we could even touch on PEDs toward the end?
So my time with Dom has been short so far. So like my perspective in terms of what we're going to do is obviously going to change from now until 6 months from now when we're a full blown growth phase, right? So we were on a good roll until obviously the back injury because I'd only been with him for a month and a half, and then that happened unfortunately.
Sure.
But leading up to that, like it was just a huge shift in food. Just eating like a decent amount more in food already just from the start. And as far as training goes, a lot more volume, like overall volume on each muscle group. My training split has changed entirely. And then in the PED realm, it's just been like very consistent, just increases, very very moderate doses at that. But in terms of like growth and things like that, that's kind of where it's been a little bit more different as well. So like I said, it's not really drastic differences just yet, except for the nutrition is where I notice the most.
Cool. So let's kind of go ahead and dive into that with the nutrition. Like, what is been substantially increased? Has it been like protein across the board? Are you guys flirting with more
So
carbs and fat?
protein actually came down a little bit. I get because at one point or another, you and I both know protein is going to be the most filling thing. It's going to absolutely destroy your appetite if you start to push food aggressively. So decreased protein slightly, kept fat about the same, and as far as carbs go, you started getting a little bit more aggressive with those. I think before my injury, I was already up to, I could be wrong on this, don't even quote me on it. I think I was up to like 270 grams of protein a day with 400, somewhere between like 375, 425 grams of carbs and 60 to 65 grams of fat. So, I mean, like and we're not even like, we didn't even start yet. Like that was just like, hey, like we're getting ready. We're getting you primed to grow.
No, I think that's great. And I think it's really important that you touched on like, yes, protein is important, but like, it's kind of like with the salt thing. Everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't be cutting salt because salt's high blood pressure. But if you're consuming fucking 12 grams of sodium a day and you're not eating fruits, especially, like at some point, it's like too much of a good thing, especially if you just view it in an isolation vacuum. It's like, okay, well, it could be a bad thing. And especially understanding that like being a bigger male, yes, you're going to have higher needs of protein requirements, but carbs are also protein sparing in their own ways. And when we want to fuel training, carbohydrates are going to be our primary fuel source during that. And so it's like, where can we find the sweet spot of your protein to not only, support recovery and growth, but also then not hinder and tank digestion? Because if you're like not able to digest what you're eating, not only are you wasting money, but you're also wasting time.
And that brings another thing because like I feel like that's where like a lot of athletes, especially the newer athletes, kind of lose sight is they stop paying attention to things like digestion because if you're not digesting these things well, like you said, you're wasting your damn money.
Yep.
You're just eating to eat, and at that point, it's like, what the hell's the point?
Exactly. And I do want to touch on also your carbohydrates, where it's like that was your starting point,
Yeah.
right? That was like your starting point of a growth phase. And to give people perspective, like, yes, our protein requirements, if you compare like George and I, it's like, are yes, much drastic because I'm a 140-pound bikini athlete, but my carbs at the height of my growth phase were 445 and my fats were 100. So even on females, you cannot be afraid to not fucking eat because if you want to grow, then you're going to have to train. And if you have to train, you need fuel to not only fuel the training, but then fucking recover from it too.
Exactly. And I feel like that brings us right into our next point here is the training aspect of things. I feel like people think, oh, well, I want more food. All right, cool. Create the fucking demand for the food. Like that's cool. You'll get more food, but show me that you actually work for it. Like I can't give you more food. You're just gonna get fat.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it. If I give you more food and you aren't training to the fullest potential and giving your body a reason to change, you're just gonna get more fat. And you, I don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of the beast.
Exactly. And I do think it's really important to also like talk about from like a caloric expenditure. It's like, yes, I think it is good, especially you being a bigger male. So like obviously if I'm thinking about programming for like a bigger male or a bigger female who is superseding their genetic potential for where their body's happy. Because as of right now, it's not that your body's miserable, but like you are going to be priming yourself to put on more weight and more mass than your body wants to actually handle. So with that is going to come side effects of, thinking blood pressure especially. And it is really important to understand it's like there's going to be a fine tune fiddling with dials between keeping your cardiovascular system healthy to support muscle gain. And so having like maybe enough list cardio or maybe one or two hit sessions a week to make sure your heart is up to the task to supporting and giving nutrients to your entire body.
And that's why I actually like, as taxing as my job is, I'm very happy for it because I'm literally on my feet for 12 hours a day. So my my heart really doesn't have a chance to actually sit down and relax. So to say, I also do my prescribed cardio during that as well. But the amount of steps I get every day when I work is like disgusting. I'm talking, I get like 17, 18,000 on most days.
Dude, you need like fucking Heelys, you know what I'm saying? Just
Could you imagine? I used to go to the doctor's office, and one of the doctors used to go around on roller skates. I'm like, yo, bro, this guy's got it right.
dude, that's what I'm saying. You could change your name to the Healy murse.
I do. I know me. I'd face plant into something. That's all it takes. Face plant into. I'll be in the middle of CPR, and somebody would just fucking face plant right into them.
You'll have your own code blue.
God,
No, but all seriousness, like that just like drives home a point again. Like obviously with your job demand, like you can't pull steps back other than like mindless steps. Which I mean, like you're very intentional in what you do. But I do work with a lot of females, especially that have like exercise addiction, where they're like, oh well, I can't like walk my dog, or I can't like go out with friends, and I'm like, I'm not asking you to sit in a wheelchair or to be a hermit. I'm asking you to not idly walk and pace and get those like anxious steps that you're no longer living your life. Because even from a recovery standpoint, when it comes to pushing past what your body wants to do, it's taking away all of those like useless activities, useless fidgeting. So that way, again, we're balancing the calorie equation of, okay, well, not getting too fat, but also making sure we're in enough surplus to encourage muscle growth, which also, again, is why we want hard, effective training, and then not so much extra waste on the back end when it comes to what's tapping into our recovery stores.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's part of the problem. Like you said, you can't really pull back in some instances. Like there's some requirement. There's some things that are required. Like my job, for example. There's police officers. There's all kinds of different jobs out there that have such a big demand. And for a coach, that's one thing you have to keep in mind as well. Like especially during a prep, like how do you manage fatigue? You know what I mean? If a client can't recover because they're working 12-hour shifts and they're running around chasing people, shooting guns, whatever the fuck they might be doing during those 12 hours, then you can't say, "Hey, bud, take off work today."
That's right. Like no work for the next 8 weeks.
Like sorry. So, like as a coach, that's kind of where I feel like people struggle, and then at the same time, the client themselves also have to be cognizant,
right,
of making sure they're not doing more than they need to when they don't need to. So, very much so. Like on my off days from work, I try to take those days to do absolutely nothing, unless I'm doing stuff for coaching, which involves me sitting on my ass anyway, which is
good. Exactly. You're like feet up.
Exactly. That's all I need.
I love it. So you did actually touch on something where you said your training volume is increased. So can you tell us a little bit more about like what your training split looks like? Are you doing any type of specialization work? Is it full body? Like tell us a little bit about kind of like the ins and outs of your programming.
So my programming before was like very specialized in terms of like specific muscle groups each day, so on and so forth. Now, being that obviously we just want to grow, I'm very leg dominant as of right now, and I'm assuming that's going to continue that growing that way. It's just how my legs respond to training, and but at the moment, the goal is just grow, put more tissue on, doesn't matter where the fuck it's at. So my training split looks like a upper day, lower day, rest, upper day, lower day, rest, and there's 2 separate days on those uppers and lowers in terms of like what we're really hitting. And like I said, at the moment, for lower, we're really not training anything crazy. Like I actually just posted something up explaining what I'm doing for lower right now, just, given the circumstances for the last few weeks. I've only been doing like seated movements, so like leg extensions, like curls, and then like leg press. And that's pretty much my entire workout, like on my leg days. But it's working. If you train it right, you train it with intensity, you'll grow from it. I mean, you can literally progress and master those movements.
Absolutely. But because your training volume is higher, are you pushing till failure on every single exercise, or how is your volume and intensity periodized so you don't like gas yourself out too quickly, considering the nature of your job
So
too?
with what I've noticed for my recovery is that generally I'm good for that split for about 2 weeks, and then you'll see me have to take about an extra rest day. So that is something that I do as as a seasoned athlete, where I say, what, like I feel my body and it's not recovering within that 48-hour window or whatever the hell I want to see it in, and I'm like, what, let's just be proactive here and take an extra rest day and do absolutely nothing. It's just how I handle it, and that's how you should handle it, in my opinion. Just because if you're not ready if you're not primed to actually hit that session, you're just wasting your time and you're just wasting muscle.
Agreed. No, I think that's really good. And that's something where, again, it's easier for seasoned athletes to do because, like, I hate to say the phrase, we know our body, because, like, yes, but also no, because sometimes emotions can cloud judgment. But
Right.
when you have enough skin in the game, you know what it's like to feel completely gassed. And as athletes, it's like, we have like the angel and demon where it's like we love to train, we love being in the gym, but also we're kind of scared of our training too because it's like we see our logbook and we're like, fuck, I gotta beat this
Oh,
shit again. Yeah, exactly. But like, if you're like, fuck, I gotta beat this again, and then you're like, I actually don't know if I can, then it's like, well, if I know I don't want to train, I don't think I'm gonna train the way that I want to train. Like, it might be good to just like take an extra rest day, so that way the next time I get after it, I can actually get after it.
yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that's how like, if you're not going in here training somewhat anxious, probably not training hard enough.
Dude, be the king athlete, train legs 4 days a week, and come back to me.
Dude, I'm good. I see your bikini girls, like every bikini girl that's successful, and I look at their programs. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like I did when I was doing my physical therapy for my back. They had me doing a bunch of shit for my glute med and like this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yeah, fuck this. I was like, I can't do this.
I love it. No, I think that's so important. Again, just taking into account that like even the recovery capacity between males and females is so drastically different. And so also taking that into account where it's like, yeah, right now you can recover from 2 leg days a week, but it's like if you were to add on a third training day, let's just say upper focus, it's like, well, that might come at the cost of sparing your central nervous system and taking out an extra leg day, especially when you're recovering from an injury anyhow. Like
Yeah,
again, it's just something where it's important to like see what the athlete needs and listening to them so that way they can think of longevity in their career.
yeah, and I think you touched base on a great topic as well. The CNS fatigue is
Mhm.
like for this applies definitely to females as well because you guys lift some heavy loads as well. But I feel like the males especially because I hate to say it, a lot of the guys that are lifting sometimes are lifting more ego. Even the guys that know what better, right?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it. If you're a guy and you say you're not guilty, you're fucking lying. But going on a hack squat, lifting 7, 8 plates per side, and hoping that your CNS just doesn't get fried it takes forever to recover from that. You know what I mean? Like I've been to it where it takes me 3 or 4 days to be like, okay, like I feel like I could probably hit a good leg workout now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nope. So true. So true. So I know kind of right now, like you are kind of into your growth phase, kind of not, just kind of seeing with the disc herniation. But something that I wish would get spoken about more is because when you're wanting to push your body and push your mind into those bigger categories, obviously that does require a certain sacrifice when it comes to PEDs. But rather than talking about dosages and drugs and all the stuff that they think that's the secret sauce, talk to me about your health supplementation and what you're specifically looking to make sure gets managed when it comes to your lab work, especially because you're a nurse too and you know about that lab work stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, generally, what I have a whole slew of supplements. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh,
And
yeah, we get the tackle box.
yeah, it's the same thing. My wife has one. I have one. It's all how it goes. The first thing to touch on, obviously, joint supplementation. I feel like that's the big one that people forget about. It's like, oh, like I'll be fine. No, those joints take attacks. Like my elbow right now, I got got a little bit of elbow tendonitis, like just lingering, and it just sucks. But joint supplements, making sure that stays healthy, because if your joints start to give out halfway through the growth phase, you got to cut
Yep.
it short. The hell's the point? Some heart supplementation, a good supplement that provides curcumin, some anti-inflammatory supplementation. That'll be good as well. Just make sure that your body's actually able to clear all that inflammation we're producing during training. If we're producing all this inflammation, and promoting all of it, which is what we want to make sure our body can recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
So from that aspect, kidneys as well. Pushing the amount of drugs or the amount of food, everything, and not to mention the amount of training as well. You want to be able to recover. Otherwise, you'll see your CK levels fucking go through the roof, and next thing you know, you're in rhabdo. Obviously, that's an extreme, but
it happens. I mean, Ross Franken, I feel like he's had
it
it
does
3
happen.
times. Yeah.
It does happen. And let me think. Obviously, just your general health supplementation. Now, the biggest thing that we see with males especially is cholesterol, right? That's the number one hitter. So making sure you're staying up on your healthy fats, like your even through, it doesn't necessarily have to be supplementation. I feel like that's where people kind of fall short, is people like, oh, I have to use this supplement, I have to use that supplement. Like, yeah, they're great, they're supplements, but getting that stuff primarily through your diet alone is going to provide the most benefit. And then that's exactly what supplements are meant to do. Supplement when you can't get things through diet. That's why it's important to get those micronutrients in, like through fruits, vegetables. Obviously, it's not the same as fats, but same principle. So having a heavy dose of fish oil, having maybe some citrus bergamot to help with that as well. There's different, all different avenues you can approach with that.
Absolutely.
And making sure that cholesterol does stay somewhat balanced. I feel like the good cholesterol is a lot of the time it takes a nice heavy hit due to PED usage.
Absolutely, yeah. That liver health is important, and really, like, keeping kind of circling back to even the protein discussion. Like, as much as red meat especially is good in the diet, I do not ever want to bash organ meats, grass-fed meats whatsoever. But it is also important from like a dietary iron standpoint to make sure you're getting enough but not too much, because a lot of that like extra iron and ferritin in the lab work, that also is going to be very reactionary and very inflammatory. And so it's like, yes, we want red meat, but we also want to make sure we prioritize like more like vitamin C, our antioxidants, especially our like, good anti-inflammatory, fruits, our fats, especially like the salmon. I know you touched on fish oil. I'm a big proponent of cod liver oil, especially because it has that vitamin A as well in it, which, I mean, depending upon the density and diversity of your diet, which, I mean, when you're pushing food, and guys, like, let's be fucking honest, if you're eating a fuck ton of food, the last thing you want to eat is a vegetable. Like, 100%. So, like,
That's
sure,
probably the
greens,
first thing you're
powder,
like, yeah, I can do without that.
yeah, exactly. It's like you want to use like easy digesting, like low volume, like fruits and veggies, absolutely. And obviously a little bit goes a long way, but even like don't being afraid of like using a greens powder. But it is so important to get those nutrients in from like a liver health standpoint, kidney health standpoint. And yes, like you said, supplementing where needed, but don't like just allow like grapeseed extract and NAC and TUDCA to do the heavy lifting. Not that those aren't great supplements to utilize, they absolutely are. But I mean, if they're just carrying like the big weight because you refuse to eat like any color in your diet, it's like, okay, well, let's do like the bare minimum first and then stack
Yeah,
upon it.
exactly. And that's kind of where it's a tricky situation, because people think it's like black and white, where you just like eat. People every day I go to work, no matter where the fuck I'm at. It's like, hey, what you got? Rice and chicken? I'm like, no, there's some greens in here. There's some fruits in here. Like, it ain't that black and white, guys. I promise. Bodybuilding can be, but you don't have to make it that black and white. I
Exactly.
promise.
Exactly. And as a female that has to eat a significant amount in her off season, it's like, don't be afraid to utilize those higher starchy like
Yeah,
vegetables and fruits. It's like definitely like I could keep blueberries in. Like we want like dark colors, but like dark cherries, very high in, micronutrients, pomegranate juice in your intra workout.
one of my favorite. That's
Exactly. Dates that they have that's it bars which are just fruit and are like this little
yep.
big. Like that's not a lot of stomach space, but it's like don't add insult to injury by having to eat like 12 ounces of rice for every meal, because like that's really gonna fucking stop you up. And that's not a good look, especially on stage with that fucking distension, because your core control just got blown out.
Oh man, don't even. Have you ever seen how much I had to eat to fill out for North Americans?
No,
Oh,
tell me, what was the deets?
oh my God. So to make weight, I had to come down in 3 weeks. I had to come down about, I think it was like 11 or 12 pounds in like 3.5, 4 weeks ish.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got down, we weighed in at 164, 165, somewhere in that area. And I filled out. I stepped on stage at 178.
Damn, that's impressive. So did you have a day to fill out,
So I
or
had, so because North Americans is a 4-day event, I think if I remember correctly, I weighed in on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I stepped on stage Friday. I think I weighed in Wednesday, and I stepped on stage Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
okay, so you kind of had like a full day to
It,
kind
it
of
was like
get
it
after it.
was. I had the night after the weigh-in, a full day after that in the morning of the show. So basically, about 2 full days, give or take, between the two. Um, and the amount of food I had to eat was disgusting.
To like
Disgusting.
ass.
It was awful. By the end of it, my stomach couldn't produce any more acid. I was popping betaine caps like it was going out of style. I I still have the screenshot on my phone. I'll have to show. I'll have to send it to you after this.
Please.
My the day I weighed in, I ate around like 5,000 calories. I think it was like 600 grams of carbs, 100 grams of fat. Day after that, it was disgusting. I think it was like 1,400, 1,200 grams of carbs, like 120 grams of fat. Then the morning of and leading into finals, it was like another like 800 or 900. It was to a point where I had to set an alarm for 2 a.m. to eat a meal.
Oh, fuck that.
And all it was 2 packets of Uncle Ben's rice with either banana or blueberry and honey. That was and a nut butter or
See,
coconut
okay, so
oil.
my question is, you're a nurse. Why didn't you just do like a glucose strip? Like if you have like a diabetic ketosis, acidosis, like I feel like that was your fault. Like you could have been like thinking smart and just said you chose to eat.
Oh man, it was all. I at that point towards the end, in the first night, I was like, this is awesome. I'm all for this. Second day after the first 2 meals, I'm like, yeah, fuck this shit. I can't do this all day. And the worst part is, you can't like you know how like in the off season you can move around, increase the appetite a little bit. No, feet up, nothing. I had my feet up playing my PS5, just chilling there, and it was awful.
Exactly. Yeah, I can empathize with you there. That is some shit, but also goes to show you like the importance of nutrition and rest and stress management when it comes to the peaking process, because like obviously you were able to fill out, but it's like at some point it's like, had you been like a hot mess express stress train, like
Well, 2 years before that show, I had my national debut in terms of first stepping on stage for an attempt at a pro card, and awful story. I had to actually put my dog down about 5 days before the show, and like I looked great leading up to that point, and then that happened, and everything went out the window. It just go like at that point in time, I realized how important stress was for anything in bodybuilding, and like it was just like finally clicked. It was like, oh shit, like stress is literally can make or break any physique, whether growing, cutting, doesn't matter.
exactly. Dang, that's hard. I'm sorry
Oh,
about your dog. That's like a
that was
family member.
that was like 5, 6 years ago, or yeah, that was like 4 years ago now. So we're good, but it was definitely a rough one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So kind of circling back when it comes to like pushing yourself with everything. Lastly, I want to touch on the mindset, because obviously when you have a lot of muscle that you know you need to grow and you hold yourself to a very high standard, have a lot of expectations, how do you support your mental health during this journey? What is your support system like, and how do you navigate that avenue?
Yeah, so thankfully, like I said, my wife also competes.
Mhm.
So as in terms of like actual support, I have tons of support around me to help me the days that suck, because growing does suck. You're gonna feel like shit some days. You're stuff in your face. Energy could be low. It's the name of the game, and how you really get around that and take care of it is you really just have to keep your focus. It's really, I mean, there's no easy way around it at the end of the day, unfortunately. You just have to literally shut up and do it. And I wish that, for some, it's going to be easier than others, but just keeping that mindset of, okay, well, this is the end goal, and we're only going to get there one way. Like, there's no other way around it unless you don't want to compete at that, at that level. Then maybe it's not for you. And how you kind of, in some cases, there's ways around it. In terms of depending on your programming, cheat meals, free meals, whatever the hell you want to call them. But at that point, I've been in a point before in an off season where like you go out for a free meal and you're like, I don't even want to do this. Like I'm overeating. Like, so
I stopped taking mine. Like I feel like 8 weeks. I was just like, I'm over it.
I remember a year and a half ago when I was in a growth phase with my previous coach. We were implementing a free meal, and it got to a point where I would eat a free meal and I would lose weight because the amount of food I was eating during like on program was a lot less than what I was just enjoying on my free meal.
Exactly. I love it. I think rounding out, I want to know like a piece of advice or words of wisdom or a nuggie, if you will, for a young man that maybe feels really, really undermuscled or skinny or is maybe insecure and wants to get to where you're at. What piece of mind could you potentially give said gentleman?
I would have to say consistency. Just be consistent. That's all. That's anything, whether in life or bodybuilding related. If you're consistent in anything you do, you will get the results you want. If you want to make thousands and thousands of dollars, if that's your MO, you find out how you can consistently make money, and you will get that. If you want to put pounds and pounds of muscle on, you find out what works for you and consistently do that day in and day out. It's really that easy. It's just finding what works for you as an individual. That's just consistency.
Yeah, and not being afraid to ask for help when you don't know what you're doing. Like that, like having that courage and having that self-awareness. Like I talk about that all the time. It's like you need self-awareness to know that you don't know what you're doing, but you need courage to ask for help.
Yeah, and like you said, you can know that you don't know what you're doing, but it's the courage part that takes it. You know what I mean? I remember when I first went to my first coach, and like I was just like, dude, I got no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Like, and the funny thing is, like, before bodybuilding, you were probably in the same situation. You probably were like familiar with the gym, and you were like, you go to the gym and just do whatever the hell you want, right? Same with me. I was, from the time I was like 15 years old, went to the gym, trained like a dumbass, just did whatever the hell I want, different body group every day, different workouts. And then I'm like, okay, when you finally sat down, we're like, okay, this is what I need to actually do. I feel like that's really important to realize, and having the, like you said, the courage to actually admit it.
Agreed. Word. I really appreciate your time. Go ahead and plug yourself for coaching. Anything else? Let the people know where to find you.
All right, guys. As you know, all right. So, like Ashley said, my name is George Gattuso, aka the bodybuilding murse. For coaching wise, if you want to work with me in terms of coaching, whether you're male, female, I coach. I don't discriminate. You can find me at Pivotal Health and Aesthetics with a few other coaches as well. So apply if you would like. And if you guys ever need any help, you can always hop in my DM. So
Slide in.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, slide in. Ashley, I appreciate you setting this up and getting everything going. If you ever want to hop back in the future when I'm 40 pounds heavier, feel free.
Oh, same. Yeah. So, like, as I lose weight, I'll give my weight to you, but you'll turn it into muscle because we all know fat turns into muscle.
That's all it is. I'm trying to do the same thing with my wife right now. Don't worry.
Right.
All right.
I love it. Well, sir, congratulations on one, getting married, two, going to Jamaica, and then helping your mom finish out her prep. Guys, I will make sure that George is not only a collaborator, so you guys can go to his page, but this will also be uploaded on YouTube. So if you guys missed the live, it will be uploaded on Instagram and YouTube to watch the replay. George, thank you so much for your time. Safe travels, and happy wedding day soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right, take care. Bye.